sometime during this post, we're going to put a link in to have some brave souls who are watching these episodes talk to us about what you got to say. Now, we've got a lot of stuff going on that we're going to unpack. But first and foremost, let me introduce to you my co host. Hailing from North Jersey, he is the scourge of every local politician, especially, I'm not even going to mention his name, but Mr. ADOS himself, the king of cobbler, Eric Dawson.
Yeah, I hear it.
Ooh, yoo-hoo-hoo-hoo.
Happy Thursday, everybody. Happy to be here. And listen, I'm excited for today's conversation to talk about where the nation goes forward post Trump era, right? And we're here today with our esteemed guests, Imam Bashir, Rabbi Frisch, and Dr. Lang. The three wise ones, as we refer to them, and they are they're going to drop some jewels for us.
Okay.
They're going to keep you and I in different corners today, Vincent. I suspect.
Yeah, it's a good thing that today you're in North Jersey and I'm in Washington, D.C. So we're going to come back in 2 minutes, 2 seconds, because we want to hear what you got to say.
To small business. That's a great way to have generational wealth. If you're a minority business, you may be struggling to keep your head above water. Why? In 2019, the Black community spent $1.5 trillion because the Black dollar lifespan, 28 days Asian communities, 19 days Jewish communities, 6 hours a month in the Black communities. Major brands target the Black media, TV, and radio. That's why Blacks are brand shoppers. That's why they get a big slice of that $1 trillion pie. Your business needs exposure. You got quotes from cable networks and local radio. They charge a lot of money for a little exposure. Networking and social media is a full-time job to get part-time money. Let's look at a successful Black business model. Remember Soul Train? It was a new Black TV show that Johnson Cosmetics increased the exposure of Afro Sheen and made billions of dollars for Bobby Johnson. Where are you gonna find a good show for a low price? We have a talk show called What You Got to Say. What You Got to Say is a Black-owned talk show streaming live on YouTube channels, Facebook Live. What You Got to Say has a diverse audience from 18 to 62 years old, and their gross income range from $32,000 to $122,000 a year. That exposure will get you a good slice of the $1.5 trillion. Tell us about your business. Maybe able to get on our Black-owned spotlight. In 4 weeks, your business can go from surviving to thriving. To find out how you can get what's yours, email sales@squiresignage.com. They're waiting to hear what you got to say.
Say, is Vincent?
All
Is that
right, honey, I
scaling the
love
wall?
you.
Is that Vincent scaling the wall over there?
Oh my God.
Oh, no, no. I'm not part of the
We are live.
Okay, well, we're live, and to answer the scaling the wall, no, I'm not part of the insurrection, and the revolution will not be televised. So let's get into it. First, the last executive order of Donald Trump was to bring in his 1776 project to trump the 1690 project.
Yeah. Yep. Well, I mean, I'm not surprised, right? I mean, he already said what he wanted to do. He said he wanted to make America great again, right?
No.
So his understanding of when it was great was then, right? And so that's what he wants to teach. That's what he wants, folks to believe and understand about America and America's history. The 1619 project is not of interest to him. He doesn't want folks to understand that part of America.
I know she's ready. Go on.
I did a little research. But that, because it just wasn't in my frame of reference of what either one of those projects were, because I don't remember really being told whether or not I was being taught at 1776 or 1619 when I was in school. So
No, you got the 1776 version.
okay, so I did some research on the 1619 and I did some research on the 1776. And it seems to me that both of these camps want to empower people. 1619 wants you to know all of the history, whereas 1776 wants you to know the history, but really look at the positive things that African Americans are doing. So my perspective was 1776 were African Americans who wanted to take slavery and say that was our history, but that doesn't frame who I am. Whereas 1619 was saying this does frame who I am. This does counter some of the things that I've been through, and it's relevant. So our former president wanted to focus on the brown people who said, let's not let slavery define us and we'll learn from it, but we're not going to use it. Because one of the distinct things I noticed when I was reading about why they refuted the 1619 is because it made white people responsible for the plight of black people.
Yes.
And so in my mind, I said, okay, so if you are a white person and you want to appease your guilt, or you want to assuage what you've done, or you want to make the country patriotic and keep all your monuments to those who were insurrectionists, you would go with the lesser of two evils in your mind. Not because you really like black people, but because you want a watered down version of what you really did.
I think that the actually politically correct term is they are whitewashing the history of America.
But aside from that, though, you got to understand. So the 1776 version gives everybody the impression then, because if you're removing slavery, right, now you're into this narrative of lifting yourself up by your own bootstraps.
When you don't have any boots.
When you don't have any boots. As Dr. King said, he said it's a cruel thing to tell a man to lift himself up by his boots, a bootless man to lift himself up.
That's right.
But it is also why immigrants have the view of Black Americans that they have, that we're lazy, that we're trifling, because they disconnect our struggle from chattel slavery, right?
Yeah.
They disconnect our struggle from all of the oppressive and restrictive laws. They disconnect our struggle from all of that. So they say, well, wait a minute. You're in a land of opportunity, right? You should be, and that's what Donald Trump and that's what these folks want. They want to be able to continue that, right? So,
okay, but
you know what's interesting?
half of the half.
I just want to add this.
Go ahead.
What's interesting about these two camps is it's Willie Lynch in full color, because you got one that's saying, okay, let's take everything that happened and let's deal with it. You got one that's saying, okay, it happened, but it's not that bad. And so they're pitting brown people against each other about an issue that's affecting all of us. Yeah. So how do you keep people divided? You pit them against each other. So Willie Lynch is happening even in this. Should we go 1776 or should we go 1619?
Okay.
And not just only the, I would say it's not that bad. It's also the effects. Just not, recognizing the effects of slavery as well. And that's something else that they just want to push off to the side.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well, okay. You are all students and practicer of the faith. Now, correct me here, but if it isn't half the truth still a lie?
Yes.
Well, that's what I get from the 1776 project. It is giving me half truth and then and whitewashing the other half of the truth. To me, it's still a lie. All we found out in reading the book of Frederick Douglass, and this is what that project does. Frederick Douglass says that they desensitize the moral fiber of America by making it a God-given right and telling a lot of ignorant people who are ignorant of this fact by choice, not by actually reading their Bible, that it was their God-given right to own slaves. Therefore, what they were saying that no. This is by divine power that we are superior over you. And what do we find today? We find white evangelics who are more white than they are evangelists, and all their and everything that they do. This 1776 project does just like what they did to storm the Capitol. No, we want our privilege, we want our superiority, and like the daughters of the Confederate, we're going to change the books and the narratives to ensure that.
But here's the challenge for me, right? So where are the opposing voices? Where do
I'm talking to one of the imposing voices.
Oh yeah.
In fact, I should be talking to 4 of the opposing voices.
But you know
No,
the challenge. Here's the
sure,
challenge you're going to have. The challenge is if you read the 1619 project, you'll say, "Oh wow, this is really good." If you read the 1776 project, you say, "Oh wow, this is really good." The challenge is that both of them have a level of empowerment that comes with it. One is looking at, okay, let's take what happened and let's integrate it and look at the trauma and look at the effects of it long term. But let's not get stuck there. 1776 says, we know the trauma happened. We're not going to get stuck and we're going to move forward. But they negate the clinical part of how people got to be where they are. So the real question is, why are those our only options?
Love that question. And I'm going to continue that question when we come back. And we're going to start to put the post in and maybe bring some people on who are watching this. Let's see if anybody's watching this, because we want to hear what you got to say. We'll be back in 2 minutes, 2 seconds.
To small business. That's a great way to have generational wealth. If you're a minority business, you may be struggling to keep your head above water. Why? In 2019, the Black community spent $1.5 trillion because the Black dollar lifespan, 28 days Asian communities, 19 days Jewish communities, 6 hours a month in the Black communities. Major brands target the Black media, TV, and radio. That's why Blacks are brand shoppers. That's why they get a big slice of that $1 trillion pie. Your business needs exposure. You got quotes from cable networks and local radio. They charge a lot of money for a little exposure. Networking and social media is a full-time job to get part-time money. Let's look at a successful Black business model. Remember Soul Train? It was a new Black TV show that Johnson Cosmetics increased the exposure of Afro Sheen and made billions of dollars for Bobby Johnson. Where are you going to find a good show for a low price? We have a talk show called What You Got to Say. What You Got to Say is a Black-owned talk show streaming live on YouTube channels, Facebook Live. What You Got to Say has a diverse audience from 18 to 62 years old, and their gross income range from $32,000 to $122,000 a year. That exposure will get you a good slice of the $1.5 trillion. Tell us about your business. Maybe able to get on our Black-owned spotlight. In 4 weeks, your business can go from surviving to thriving. To find out how you can get what's yours, email sales@squiresignage.com. They're waiting to hear what you got to say.
We're having a very spirited discussion as to really the beginnings of practically everything. Is it 1619 or is it 1776 that many of us learned in school? And only recently we've discovered 1619, and we have some opinions around the table here, wise ones and hosts alike. And I know that we're looking for people to come in and participate. But one thing remains at the top of the triage list. Where do we begin? And how do we decide? Is there a moment in time that begins our educational process to begin to address the challenges of the past, no matter where we begin?
Okay, well, let's see. Solomon said that my people perish for lack of knowledge. Yet we look at the lack of knowledge or the misinformation and miseducation of the true facts, and it still has a huge stigma. The 1776 project smacks in the face with, yeah, my grandfather, my great-great-great-great-grandfather owned your great-great-great-great-grandfather. deal with it.
Well, you know, that brings to mind the young person today who says, my great-great-grandfather owned my great-great-great-grandmother. And a lot of the issues of identity emerge today, which of course helps us come to terms with the following idea that you can find in Exodus. It says right there in the first chapter of Exodus, a new king arose who knew not Joseph. And it doesn't mean he forgot about Joseph. It would have been impossible to forget about Joseph. It was purposeful. This Egypt and this Pharaoh, this king, purposely forgot about everything that Joseph and his people did in order to save Egypt. And they feared him. If you look right into that narrative, they feared these Israelites and they enslaved them because of the fear.
Yes.
And they never let them arise. They never let them arise. And it took a lot of fighting on the part of the one and a lot of pushing on the part of those Moses and company. But it lingered for 400 years. And we have to keep in mind, 1619 to today, 400 years, the same thing. We're dealing with the same issues of identity and purposeful forgetting. And it's not negligence. It is determinative. I fear you. I fear your slave uprisings. I fear your power. I fear everything about you, and I'm going to subjugate you. Even after I'm forced to let my people go, I will still fear you. I will still go after you with my chariots. I will still bring Bull Connor on and beat you on the bridge. I will do everything to keep you down. Because those 400 years were more than, and Eric, I want you to know, it was more than just an economic priority. It was fear, and it was hatred, and it was watching everything they had just drip away off the table. And it took a lot for the Egyptians and for the Pharaoh, but guess what? It took a lot for the Israelites and all those slaves to go free, and it was not easy.
Okay, so now we're at 402 years. Go ahead, Iman.
Yeah, I would just say 2 points. One is that when you look around the world, and I've traveled to quite a few different countries, people normally write their own narrative. This is a unique situation where we have a history, we have a narrative, but we are not writing it ourselves. We have relied on, and in some cases been forced upon us, a different narrative. And unfortunately, it's the narrative from the perspective of the same people who owned us.
Go ahead, bro. Preach
that. Number two is this society has created an environment that pushes people away when you remind them about slavery. Now, one of the things I can give credit to our Jewish brothers and sisters is that they have created an environment that if you say something dealing with the Holocaust, people accept it. And they actually, and some of the terminology is never let it happen again. That was terrible. But then when Black folks mention about the effects of slavery, and it actually has happened to me personally on many occasions. Oh, that was 400 years ago. Oh my goodness, you guys still talking about that? So you see the difference there? So, hey.
Well, I want to respond to the Imam. You know, we in the Jewish community, we do say never again. There's no question about it. And we do our best to determine that narrative. We don't even like the word Holocaust because it's a word in English that somehow embodies a sacrifice in the Old Testament. And we don't view 6 million Jewish souls as a sacrifice for anything else. Right. We call it a Shoah, which means it's a desolation, you know, unto the horizon. And we are committed to never having that happen again. And I will tell you, of the people that I associate with in the Jewish community, my colleagues, my peers, my people, not one of them would ever place 1619 all the way through to today as something that's debatable. But yeah, out on the horizon, let me tell you, out on the horizon, wait, let me say this. There are a lot of people that are calling for Holocaust denial. It never happened. It's crazy. How can you kill that many people? And they're the people that we're saying never again to, and they say, oh, it never happened. Oh, and by the way, 6 million were not enough. And how do I know that? People storming the Capitol last week were wearing shirts that said 6 million were not enough, and staff at Camp Auschwitz. Let me tell you something. Those people are criminal. because they want to put the Holocaust up for a debate. But I will tell you, Imam, no Jew that I associate with, my leadership, my compatriots, my colleagues, my people, no one would ever say that the slavery that ensued in America was up for debate. It's a fact. And it too can never happen again.
And I accept that. And I was not referring, just to be clear, I was not referring to you or either in general, the Jewish community. But it has been put out there in such a way where when slavery is mentioned, oftentimes it is, oh, that was 400 years ago or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, actually, those comments have been going towards both. We have everybody has heard the simple fact of when someone complaining about a Jewish person saying, oh, the suffering that my people have not done was not enough. Everybody has heard some black person say, man, that was 400 years ago. Get over it. We've done that. Okay, now that we've done that and we realize the importance or the hurt that we have in doing it, stop it. Plain and simple.
Let me tell you something. After World War II, there was a lot of reparations that were paid by Germany to the people in Israel and to survivors around the world. And I'll tell you, that was a huge debate within the Jewish community whether they should accept it from these perpetrators. And some did and some did, but it was a huge debate. But I will tell you this, and quite clearly, there's a lot of Jewish property out there still to this day that will not be returned because many countries think it's their property where it was actually the property of certain Jews. And I want to contrast that with the promises made to the African-American people, the slaves that were freed. There were promises made to them, 40 acres and a mule. Or was it 40, whatever happened to that? And when you talk about reparations today, I'm sure it would be a debate within the African-American community. But when you talk about reparations today, where the hell are those reparations and why are they scoffed at? Why?
Okay, look, I'm not even going to answer it. Here's my cue. Eric, what is the biggest conversation that politicians during the point of their election bring up to gain the black vote?
Reparations.
Thank you.
And
after they get voted, guess what happens to that conversation?
It gets tabled.
Just like the 40 acres and a mule.
Yeah.
Now, we're going to be back because I'm getting a little heated with this actual conversation, and we're going to shift the focus now on the inauguration. What are blacks hoping for? What are blacks expecting? And what should blacks demand? I'm Vincent Squire, and we will be right back because we want to know what you got to say.
To small business. That's a great way to have generational wealth. If you're a minority business, you may be struggling to keep your head above water. Why? In 2019, the black community spent $1.5 trillion because the black dollar lifespan, 28 days Asian communities, 19 days Jewish communities, 6 hours a month in the black communities. Major brands target the black media, TV, and radio. That's why blacks are brand shoppers. That's why they get a big slice of that $1 trillion pie. Your business needs exposure. You got quotes from cable networks and local radio. They charge a lot of money for a little exposure. Networking and social media is a full-time job to get part-time money. Let's look at a successful black business model. Remember Soul Train? It was a new black TV show that Johnson Cosmetics increased the exposure of Afro Sheen and made billions of dollars for Bobby Johnson. Where are you gonna find a good show for a low price? We have a talk show called What You Got to Say. What You Got to Say is a black-owned talk show streaming live on YouTube channels, Facebook Live. What You Got to Say has a diverse audience from 18 to 62 years old, and their gross income range from $32,000 to $122,000 a year. That exposure will get you a good slice of the $1.5 trillion. Tell us about your business. Maybe able to get on our black-owned spotlight. In 4 weeks, your business can go from surviving to thriving. To find out how you can get what's yours, email sales@squiresignage.com. They're waiting to hear what you got to say.
With the 40 acres and a mule. So after they decided that the president decided that he was going to commission that land for the former slaves. so that they can divide it up. And the pastor, the AME pastor at that time, I'm forgetting his name, but he said based upon the amount of people, it should be 40 acres per family. So then he said, well, the president said, we also have a surplus of mules that we've confiscated and that are part of the war rations. So that's where the term that 40 acres and a mule came from. But the worst thing about it was put into executive order. Before the order came down to get finished, he lost the election by the quote unquote, as Eric liked to say, corporation of white supremacy. The campaign was ran on the fact of we're going to keep them oppressed, slavery now, slavery then, and slavery forever. So when he lost the election, guess what happened to the executive order of the acreage and the mules? Okay, now we're back. A little history lesson for everybody. But the next thing you know, well, we just witnessed history yesterday. First and foremost, history yesterday, this year has been an exciting time. We have two people who broke records in running for election. Donald Trump received the most votes of any sitting president. And his 74 plus million people who voted for him came to a great deal of shock to find that Joseph R. Biden received the most votes in America history, period. His 81 million plus votes beat not only the popular, but the Electoral College. Going forward, history again, with having the first woman of color be installed and inaugurated for the Vice President of the United States. The first woman to be installed as the Vice President of the United States. And we've also witnessed history where Black people in overwhelming numbers turned the state of Georgia from its conservative red or Republican red to now blue, tying the Senate, and giving Vice President Kamala Harris, because the Vice President job is the president over the Senate, the deciding vote. Now, what I'd like to know is this. What do we hope to come out of this Biden-Harris administration?
What I hope to come out of this Biden-Harris administration, for us to see a reflection of what America is, and that is that is a purple leadership. And so as we start to, so it got me to thinking about the whole 16, 19, 70, 76. It's all about perspective. So I could say as a Black woman, I want to see this, this, and this. As a woman, I want to see this, this, and this. As an American, I want to see this, this, and this. So the first thing I want to see is for them to get this conversation of bipartisanship. I want to see them have an intelligent conversation about the American people who hired them instead of their state and their color, right? So for me, it's not just about being a Black woman. It's about she is the first, but she won't be the last. So we've got a lot of progress that we've made, and we've got farther to go. We got the first women in a lot of positions in this administration. And I'm excited to see how the blended leadership is going to function different, because our previous administration was predominantly white male. And so now we've got some men of color, we got some women of color, we got some women of Latino descent. We've got a blended administration that's going to give different perspective. And I'm excited for that.
Well, the number one thing that excited me yesterday watching that inauguration was a 22-year-old young African-American woman.
Whew, go ahead, bro. Yeah.
And I'm gonna tell you something. When she spoke, the hairs on my neck stood up straight. And from the mouths of babes, and to Eric Dawson, my esteemed colleague, I want to tell you that, or should I say esteemed colleague? I'm not sure which one, but importantly, I want to say to you, the youth spoke that day through her voice, and her entire body. I mean, it just, to use that phrase, embodied the message of a new day dawning. That she clearly, through her poetry, through her words, through her actions, she intimated in a very powerful way that the future would come from this coming generation, this upcoming generation, this rising generation. And some of the people, Reverend Doctor, that you talked about, while it's a diversity, I saw a lot of people that were a little bit too much of yesterday up there on the dais. And look, I'm an old man myself. In the Jewish community, they call someone like me an AK, just an old guy, all right? But this old guy's eyes are not too dim to see where the future lies today. And that she represented a generation rising. And that's what I saw yesterday.
Rabbi?
Yes, sir?
What are you hoping for?
I'm hoping that this administration promotes from the community upwards. Sometimes they talk about, I think the Reverend Doctor talked last week about trickle down. She used that expression, trickle down. And I hear you, and I respect what you have to say there. In the way that we bestow in education, I understand that, but we're often bestowing yesterday's words. I would like this administration, what I'm hoping for is to reach into this, this rising generation. I don't care what color, what ethnicity, what people. I'd like to reach in there and say, the future is yours. What can we do to help you, to tell you about 1619 to today, to tell you what has happened, to show you the distance that we've come, but to lay open for you the road ahead so that we can make much more progress, as Eric was talking about, to get from the 25-yard line. I'd like to get to the 55. And Eric, I'll be straight with you. With this generation, I'd like to see this administration promote those who will run the entire field into the end zone. That's what I would like from this administration. Promotion of a people rising. I don't care what color, but I do care about what they accomplish. I do care about that.
Yeah, I would hope that, and I know we're, for the sake of time, just some of the campaign promises and the rhetoric that we heard, that I am hopeful that those things will be, coming into reality. And there's much more I can say, but I'll just kind of leave it there.
So you read Lift Every Voice.
Yeah. So here's my thing. So when I listen to this, what I would say is this. The ruling class who participates in these elections on both sides, right? Not Democrat, not Republican. They have an interest in both camps, right? They don't hope, they demand, right? They have a real expectation. So when we can look and say, as Black Americans, and we could talk about the 81 million, right, which includes, everybody. But when we say such a large number of Black Americans revived a campaign that was dead, right? And we're hoping, something's wrong there. See, we shouldn't be in a position of hoping. That's passive. See, and so just hearing that frustrates me, because it means that we're already off on the wrong foot.
Okay.
Right now, it doesn't frustrate
hear what
me.
I'm saying. Hear what I'm saying. There are a lot
Okay.
of people
Excuse me.
now
Let's
that
get ready
people that are holding court right now with the Biden administration that are demanding. Why are we?
But I agree with you, but I think that the hope is important, because hope signifies something that starts from within. It's sentimental. It's an emotion. I think that's the basic level. So you need the hope, because the hope also can translate into vision. It can translate into demand.
Yes.
But if it doesn't start in the heart, then you might not get to the demand. So I think we're on the same page, but at the same time too, not to discount the hope part either.
I think the problem is that we put people in office and then we take a step back and we expect them to continue the journey instead of staying engaged.
Come on, Reverend.
My expectation is that we would stay engaged and hold people's feet to the fire. We can't elect them and then say, all right, you got it. We still
Right.
got to be
Well,
engaged.
let's just remember what Eric Dawson's father said to Eric, young Eric. He said, well, you know, at a certain point, we have to hold a knife to their neck.
I'm not doing that.
No, I know that. I know that. Reverend Doctor, I know.
Not a,
All right. But here's the thing.
Okay,
But what the Reverend
Dr.
Doctor
Lane, quick,
said,
boys. Look,
Yeah, Lucky,
You
it
just
was
wanna
the
be
white
home
guy
and-
who said that. I
Lucky.
want
that knock, right? The knock is on the door. The knock is on the door.
so let me return to the Reverend Doctor. She said, "Feet to the fire." And so, Eric, let me tell
I
you
keep
something.
feet to the fire.
Right? Feet to the fire.
Okay.
Let's stick with that. All right. You know, and you know, Eric's conversations with his father are sacrosanct. So we're just going to leave that alone for a moment here. And I'm going to say to you, every one of us, I'm going to say to all of us, if we in this hoping, praying, all good. Religious folk do that. Hope and pray. Okay, good. But I'm tired of hopes and prayers, you know, after every massacre, after every assassination, after all this gun violence, hopes and prayers go out to the family. I'm tired of that. I really am.
Go
You know?
ahead.
And here's what I am interested in. I'm interested in telling politicians, either while they're running or Eric, while they're in office, that we're going to vote their butts right out of office, and we're going to be organized to do such unless they take that which we need and give it to us, that which we
That's right.
require to move
Yes.
forward. And while the Imam says it comes from the heart, it has to come from our hands.
yes.
Holding feet to the fire. We have to combine hands and hearts here and stop with these thoughts and prayers.
I would say the last
Religious
4
folk
years,
that we are. You
the
know?
last 4 years was an awakening. There was an
Yes.
awakening
Yes.
of people
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
in all generations,
Right.
all classes, all genders, all races. It was an awakening. Either you were going to be engaged or you were going to stay asleep. And for a lot of people who have the privilege of staying asleep, right? So I used to be a part of this group, and we were having these racial discussions, and there were a lot of so I was the only black person on the line, and part of the discussion was I never even knew this existed. I went to work, I went home, my kids went to school. I never even had to engage in what was going on in America because my life was such. But the last 4 years has caused people to have to engage, because now you have to make a decision. Either you're going to be in or you're going to be out. You can't just sleep through anymore because your silence is compliance.
There
Yeah.
you go.
Violence-
Now this
in
is
my-
this is what
in-
I have. This
in my-
is what I have to say. The only blessing of Donald Trump, allowing COVID to come in, having America stand still. And then we got to see on a regular basis George Floyd laying down there. He was not resisting. He did not have a weapon, saying with his dying breath, "I can't breathe, please," and calling out to his dead mother. Now, if that didn't wake up a lot of people who were so complicit with the way things was and wanted to move things forward. Now, I'm not just talking about black people, I'm talking about white people, because most of the Black Lives Matter rallies I've been to, there were more white people than there were black.
Can I tell you this though? Can I add this?
Go ahead.
George Floyd opened a lot of eyes, but it was the insurrection that opened the country's eyes. Because you have to look at George Floyd. You can still use your bias and say he was drunk, he was high, he was ever. But when you saw the insurrection, you got to see, for white people, you got to see your uncle, and you got to see your grandma, and you got to see your sister, and you got to see your neighbor, and your post office man, and your people doing some crazy stuff. And you had to make
Wait a minute. No. Your state representative, your police officer, your
Yes.
firefighter, your postal carrier, and please, let's not forget the person who serves in the United States military.
But
Right.
that
And don't
also
forget your
showed the
National
systemic
Guard, Reverend Doctor.
There you go.
Your National Guard that had to be pulled off the line after they already moved into the Capitol.
But
Absolutely.
that
Or like
showed,
is
Trump.
that showed the systemic racism. Now, you know, in my faith tradition, we're and it's even verses in the Quran about this in terms of supporting leadership and all of that. But it also talks about, it's a concept that's known as taqlid, and it means blind following or blind faith. Oh, my Democratic leader, he's in there. Oh, this person is a congressman, a senator, and they look like me. No, the hope is there, the sentiments is there, but also too, we have certain expectations, and we definitely need to have these demands. So I'm with you, Eric. I just think that the foundation for that is the hope and the vision and all of that. So we have to hold them accountable, and we have to demand things.
Okay, well, let's look at it.
We also saw
comment on what,
different inaugurations. We
Right.
saw
Yeah.
one 4 years ago that was quote unquote spiritual, quote unquote God doing God's thing, and then we saw another
That was a
one
lie.
yesterday
Yeah.
that
Don't
was
make-
reflective of what America really looks like.
See,
We saw
I'm
some
about to.
hope, we saw some vision, we saw some, and a lot of people, I tell you, I got a lot of people telling me I felt like I could breathe.
Mm,
so I want to comment on what you said, Dr. Lane, regarding Trump opening eyes. And Vincent and I had this conversation, and I guess this is part of why he said this would be spirited. When I look at what occurred, we're talking about COVID. Again, it's not, to me, it's not a Democrat or Republican thing. It's a all of them thing, right? And so that when I look at the disproportionate number of Black Americans that are getting ill, that are dying, right? And I understand how both sides, not just one, but both sides played politics with this. And so let's take the Democratic Party that says that they have such empathy and sympathy for Black people, such that we showed up and voted in the numbers that we did. Well, they were clear in terms of our underlying conditions and how susceptible we were. And they continue to play politics with this at the state level, right? Our congressmen and women play politics at the national level. And then at the state level, they played politics with it because they had one goal, and it was to get rid of Donald Trump. And they were willing to have Black people be collateral damage in their war to get rid of Donald Trump. I will and so and now that he's gone, all of these things, and we've been doing it during the day on our show. You have one of my good friends, Dr. Chris Purnell, who they're now dragging across the media circuit, right? Talking about COVID-19 and the vaccine and how safe it is and how they arrived at the vaccine so quickly, which is one of the things that is a stumbling block for the Black community in terms of trusting it, right? So where they could have brought that information forward, right? They could have used the might of their media platforms to engage the community and inform us about how the federal government, right, funded pharma, which gave them the power to do what they did. That would have been giving Donald Trump some credit. And they didn't want to give him an iota of credit because they wanted to crush him. And they realized, though, that the trauma in the Black community, based on how we have been treated historically, would create the issues that exist. They said, we're willing to sacrifice that for him.
Okay, well, I've been trying really hard not to quote the rabbi. So what I'm going to say is this.
Do it.
Go ahead, quote him.
Quote him.
I want to follow up with what he said, though. I want to say that it wasn't just Democrats.
Go ahead.
Oh, I
wasn't.
No,
It was
go
all of
ahead.
them.
No,
It was
go
all
ahead.
of them.
Go ahead.
It was all of them.
I would say
No,
it
ladies
wasn't
first.
a Democratic agenda. I think it was a political agenda that both of them benefited
both.
from.
No,
And it
I
wasn't
agree
just
with
Black
you.
people who were collateral damage.
No, you're right.
Everybody,
All of them.
400,000 Americans were collateral damage. So
Yes.
what's foolishness?
Yes.
Okay. Now here's the thing, Eric.
Can I just say about quoting the rabbi, which is totally fine. Totally fine. I'm happy to have that happen here. And Eric, I just want to add to you, since I was the author of that statement, so to speak. I want to say to you, I needed clarification because I thought I heard what apparently Vincent and the Reverend Doctor heard. So I just want to say the Tuskegee experiment,
Come on.
I think, was in the back of your mind there when you were talking. I think so. I
Well,
want to
no,
hear more
no,
about
that's-
that. Not right now. I do want to hear more about that because this is the first time. And again, I'm not in your community. All right.
Okay.
But I am. But Eric, I feel like I am in a community with you because we're in the same boat. I want to hear more about that. But I want to tell you something. A, I never heard that. And B, I'm really hoping that that's just a perspective. Because if that is the truth, whatever Vincent heard and the Reverend Doctor said that she heard, I am just flabbergasted. And to use my own quote in a different way, I'm bullshit about that. That is amazing.
Now this is why I quoted the rabbi. First and foremost, yes, it was Black America because Congressman Fishburne, the majority whip, got in there and pushed Carolina to resurrect Biden's campaign.
Yes, he did.
It's true. Yes, that part is true. Now, and yes, it's actually true that there were two types of mindsets. There were people who were voting against Donald Trump and people who were voting for Biden. Now, and when they dissect that in the survey of people who are voting against Donald Trump, what they were voting was against COVID. What they were voting for was against this food insecurity that they're experiencing. What they were voting was against that now they don't have a job. What they were voting was against the simple fact of having some safety. What they were voting on was against the simple fact that now they're facing foreclosure and eviction. What they were voting on was that they actually thought that this man had an ounce of common decency to do something fundamentally for somebody else other than his contingency. And he failed us. That's why
So
people were
why
voting
do we
against
have the
Donald Trump.
vaccine as early as we do?
Why do we have the vaccine as early as we do? Because Donald Trump, Operation quote unquote Warp Speed, paid them enough money where they can actually develop the vaccine, have the test, and manufacture it at the same time.
That's
But
right.
now, but listen,
That's right. No, but no, but
why
wait a
do-
minute.
Why
No,
do we
but.
have?
Leave
Why
it-
do we have over
Leave it there. No, leave
400,000
it there.
people dead?
Leave
He's
it-
got more people dead than World War I, World War II, and Vietnam altogether.
No, but what I'm saying to you is this. So now, and again, we can have the conversation about his lies and all of those other things.
How?
But-
Okay,
But
we-
wait a minute. But here's my but. But a broken clock is right twice a day,
okay.
right? And we have to acknowledge that. And what I'm saying is there was no acknowledgement of that. And so the acknowledgement of that could have saved some of those that perished. And because they were hell bent on by any means necessary stopping that guy, they didn't acknowledgement the correctness of that broken clock.
Well, can I
Right
say
now, nobody
done
is going to
that, but
sit
I'm
there
telling
and
you,
wait 12
wait a minute.
hours
No,
for
no,
this
no.
clock to be
Here's
right.
what I'm saying to
Cut
you.
it
I
out.
didn't-
People are
no, no, no.
dying.
Okay, calm
I
down
did
here.
not-
Calm down.
I didn't understand until I heard from my friend, and she broke it down about how, because I was saying to myself too, and my mother and I, how'd they come up with this vaccine so quickly? How'd they do that?
Okay, well,
any
But
vaccine-
they didn't start from scratch with this vaccine. I have
Oh, no,
many
no.
friends, some of who are part of my congregation who are scientists, who are doctors.
Right.
But COVID, this type of virus is not 100% new.
No,
They
no,
actually built upon the science that was already there.
no, that's right.
When-
But
and
I'm talking
wait a
about-
minute, but nobody
no,
gave
I'm talking
Obama
about it
credit.
getting
No,
to the
nobody gave
public.
Obama credit
That
for bringing
happened-
those scientists in that developed this actual
Here you
ability for
are
them to
with-
do it.
But here you are with the talking points for the Democrat Party, Vincent. What I'm
Democrat
saying is
Party,
this.
I'm a
But I'm-
Republican.
Right, but right,
What do you mean talking points for Democrats?
but what I'm saying is
Cut that
this.
crap.
Wait, hold on. Wait, Vince, would
Oh.
you please let Eric defend himself?
I'm
please?
going to let Eric defend himself right after we take this break. We're going to be back in 2 minutes, 2 seconds.
Into small business. That's a great way to have generational wealth. If you're a minority business, you may be struggling to keep your head above water. Why? In 2019, the Black community spent $1.5 trillion because the Black dollar lifespan, 28 days Asian communities, 19 days Jewish communities, 6 hours a month in the Black communities. Major brands target the Black media, TV, and radio. That's why Blacks are brand shoppers. That's why they get a big slice of that $1 trillion pie. Your business needs exposure. You got quotes from cable networks and local radio. They charge a lot of money for a little exposure. Networking and social media is a full-time job to get part-time money. Let's look at a successful Black business model. Remember Soul Train? It was a new Black TV show that Johnson Cosmetics increased the exposure of Afro Sheen and made billions of dollars for Bobby Johnson. Where are you gonna find a good show for a low price? We have a talk show called What You Got to Say. What You Got to Say is a Black-owned talk show streaming live on YouTube channels, Facebook Live. What You Got to Say has a diverse audience from 18 to 62 years old, and their gross income range from $32,000 to $122,000 a year. That exposure will get you a good slice of the $1.5 trillion. Tell us about your business. May be able to get on our Black-owned spotlight. In 4 weeks, your business can go from surviving to thriving. To find out how you can get what's yours, email sales@squiresignage.com. They're waiting to hear what you got to say.
Welcome back, everyone. And once again, we are having a lively and spirited conversation.
No, we're fighting. No, tell the truth.
Okay,
We're fighting.
All right. Well, I'll just be totally upfront. We're fighting with each other. But at the end of the day, we are still friendly and we love one another.
Yes.
And sometimes when we have these discussions, there are little mini discussions that pop up as well. But what we want to try to do in this segment is try to focus in on our original thought, and that it was just 3 points in terms of what Black people need to do or what they want. And it was based upon hope. It was based upon what to expect. And also finalizing it is what should we be demanding?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, so let us just move on to what we should be demanding, right? We can continue the discussion about the vaccine and all that kind of stuff, which I think is important too, right? Because folks need to understand clearly what the science is, and that the anti-vaxxers and all of those guys who have been preying on them are just wreaking havoc in our communities. We should be demanding real justice, not symbolic justice, right? I don't want Black lives painted on streets where Black lives don't matter, right? I don't want that. I don't mind them keeping their statues even, right?
I mind.
I mind.
I don't mind them keeping their statues. Let me erect my statue next to it, though, right? Because that's a statue, and the only issue with the statue, the main issue with the statue, is that the truth about who that person isn't told. So tell the truth. If you're going to keep the statue up, tell the truth about the statue. But the harm is that the statue is there and it's glorified as opposed to telling the truth about it. But taking it down, I don't care.
Tear it
to me, that's symbolic, right?
Wait, Eric, let me just say this. Separate but equal just never really worked.
Come on, Rabbi.
And in addition to that, when I saw them parading that Confederate flag around the Capitol, I think, they're saying, well, we should have our flag there too. No, that's a part of sedition. That's not American history. That's seditious. It's racist. It's anti-Semitic. It's anti-everything. And no, you don't get to bring. No one gets to bring a Nazi flag into the halls of Congress and say this is our history, even though there have been Nazis around. So I'm just telling you right now, separate but equal. No, tear those statutes down, and those military bases, Reverend Doctor, that are named after Confederate generals. I'm sorry.
Got to go. Thank you.
There are plenty.
Gotta go.
There are plenty of black folk, and there are plenty of white folk, and all kinds of other folk that were heroes, both militarily and patriots and Americans,
Word.
and they were loving and they were caring, and they deserve to have their names on ships, on
Absolutely.
airplanes, and bases.
Absolutely.
And I'm not interested in telling my narrative alongside your narrative. Those days are over. And I'll tell you why, Eric, because the narrative of the United States Congress was violated last week because they wanted their flag up there. They wanted their people climbing the walls. They wanted their story told. And by the way, they wanted their president. And you want to know something?
There you go.
No.
There
No.
you go. There you go.
You just got to say
Woo.
no, and we got to move on in the right direction. And that's not ever going to be separate but equal. I'm
Yeah.
Well,
sorry.
here's you
And
know
that-
what? Here's what's sad. What's sad is it took that for people to wake up.
Huh.
That place has been desecrated before
Yes. By the
with
British.
laws and with a bunch of
Yeah.
foolishness that they've been
Mhm.
talking about. But it wasn't until you see people out there climbing the walls, busting windows. Why did it have to take that for people to listen?
Mm. But you
Mm.
know, with
Because-
us, the demand part, I think the demand has to come with courage. But the courage, I think, is on both parts. It has to come from us, the people. We have to have enough courage to demand equality, to demand justice, right?
Yes.
And demand policies that
Yes.
are real. that
There
are
you
real.
go.
But
Yes.
also too, there's a problem that exists, and I've been involved in government. I've worked under 2 mayors in their cabinet, one an additional 3rd mayor. I was appointed on certain commissions and all of that. Unfortunately, well, it's a good thing that Biden has a very diverse cabinet. But unfortunately, what has happened in the past, and I've seen it firsthand, Black folks and the brown folks that we get in these positions, we get elected to office, and then we're overly concerned about what other people
People might think. There you go.
Maybe they're going to think that I'm just zeroing in on black folks or white folks. No disrespect, white folks don't care. They get in the office and they do whatever they normally do. We
Yes.
get in the office and we're overly concerned about what someone else is going to think.
Yes.
Have enough courage.
Oh,
You know,
although we are
we saw this
although
in the Obama administration. He bent over backwards time and time again to show that he wasn't, pandering
black
to the
president.
black community. I got you. But you know what? On the other hand, Imam, I see a senator from the great state of Missouri, who I think it was, and he gives a fist bump or a power sign to all the people outside the Capitol. And,
Oh
and
yeah.
And I see that, and I'm thinking, you're right. He doesn't have any fear of appearing that way. Here's a lily white, Ivy Leaguer
Mhm.
who is, he's intellectual, clearly an elite, and he's trying to act like he's one of the people.
Yeah.
And it doesn't get more racist than raising that fist in order to show that the election was stolen, from his lily white constituency that votes red, like the reddest red you could possibly get. It will never turn the other way. And to Reverend Doctor's point, that was a wake-up call, not to the 74 million, maybe some of them, but it was a wake-up call to the rest of us who said, this is institutional. These people don't give a holy hoot. Speaking of holiness, they do not care about pandering to the other side, not trying to look too white or too red or too
They don't
anything.
care.
They don't care.
No, they don't.
It's high time.
They don't.
Listen, it's
No.
high time that white people and black people and brown people and every other kind of people in this country woke up and said, all right, we're going to elect you, but you need to reflect our wants and our needs and our
That's
desires.
right.
Let
And
us-
if you don't,
Isn't that what Ayanna
and we're going to vote your butt out.
But
But
we talk
Ayanna
about what we
said
demand. We really talk about what we demand.
What we
We
demand.
a lot of things, policies, procedures, but until we demand better from ourselves,
Woo!
no matter what the policy is, if we still shoot each other, it doesn't matter
Yes.
what the policy is if we're still going after each other. So
Mhm.
it's got to be a grassroots effort to say, you know what, I'm going to be better, and I'm going to expect better from my family, and I'm going to expect better from my community. And then, like Rabbi, you said, it's got to come from the community. It doesn't. That we can vote for them, we can put them in office, but until we hold ourselves to our feet to the fire, none of this is going to matter.
Yeah.
Okay, so
And it's
besides,
like-
besides
it's like
the
what
poet
we said
laureate
about
yesterday, wait, hold on. Besides that
Yeah.
poet laureate yesterday, I don't know anyone who's spoken to me. I don't care what color I am. I've heard no one else besides her speak to me about what could be and what should be and what has to be. I have not seen it. And so when
But
you say that it has to come from the community, I want to say to all of you, and Erica, I'm talking to you specially right now.
Mhm.
I told you 2 weeks ago, you don't have the time. And I'm going to say it again. We don't have the time. We have to find those people. We have to give them our perspective, but we have to open the door to the road ahead and pray to the God above. And here among us, we got to pray to that somehow the road ahead is in our hands and on our feet. Because we're going nowhere if we just elect people and get passive. Because look what happened. Everyone's been betrayed. And these last 4 years have been the ultimate of betrayal to me.
So
Well, let's look at
way
to
that I'm
actually
looking
quote.
at it for me right now, Rabbi,
Yeah.
is to keep people awake.
Yeah.
See, Donald Trump woke people up, right? He turned the heat up, right?
He did
And
us
I
a
think that-
favor. If you ask me, he did us
Oh
a
no,
favor.
that's
I agree.
right. If you look at the experiment that they do with the frog, right, where you
Oh
they say
yeah, in
you
the
put
boiling pot of water.
that's right.
Yeah,
So
2
Donald
minutes.
Trump turned the heat up and the pot boiled and the frog started jumping, right?
Yeah.
And now my fear is that now you'll go back to some moderate form of government, right? Turning it down to a simmer, putting everybody back to sleep, and nothing impactful happening. And so I just want folks to stay awake, especially these first 100 days,
Yeah.
right? Literally.
Yeah.
These
We
100
have to be
days,
proactive and
Be
not just
very-
reactive.
Well, Dr. Lane already expressed that we need to keep our foot on the gas, keep
Yes.
holding these people to the fire, not just be lulled into a false sense of security because Biden and Harris are in office. No, as you said, you want all of those things in his campaign promise. We're demanding all of those things. But you know what? I have to agree with one thing that Rabbi said. That laureate spoke so much truth to so much power at one particular time that she should have touched not only the heart and souls of all of those people who've been crafting these laws to oppress us, but she should have touched the heart and soul of everyone at the sound of her voice to examine themselves. That we need to be better.
But
That
she
we're
cannot
in
be
this
the only
situation,
one.
not because we're in this situation, because we don't have the courage, we don't have the intestinal fortitude or the bravery to speak the truth to this power.
I think, but I think part of the challenge is that we have to create the atmosphere where people feel safe enough to say their truth. When I was in theater, we had conversations about race. And part of the challenge was it's a hard thing to talk about. As Black people, we're accustomed to talking about being oppressed and being oppressed. But for some white people, they've never had this conversation because they never had to.
And they don't have the
Questions
experience.
you don't have to ask. And so part of the challenge for me was creating the space where everybody felt safe enough to talk about it. So
Yeah.
while we're saying we want to demand this, we want to demand that, we can't leave our white brothers and sisters out who are our advocates, who are terrified to say something wrong. We have to be proactive as brown people to say, you know what? Not every white person is a Donald Trump racist. Not
That's
every
right.
white person wants to see me fail. You know what I mean? So we have to do our part to understand the truth. Going back to the 1619 and 1776, we've got to find a new way because we can't do to other people what's been done to us. And that's where the danger comes. When we start pointing the finger and say, y'all did this and y'all did that and y'all did this and y'all did that, at some point, somebody's got to do something together.
But you know what? I think really the environment is right. I really
I think so.
that
I agree.
for us to make the demands, for us to get the type of support, and I think the pressure is on for those who are in the limelight. The pressure is on to do the right thing. So I hope and pray to Allah that we are continue to be proactive and not just reactive, and we can get the things done. One thing I would like to say, real brief.
Go ahead.
You know, there's a lot of policies that we look at from a community aspect in terms of helping everyone. As one particular policy, it'll help a lot of people, but it definitely helped me if he follows through with the student loans.
Amen.
Mm,
That would
come on,
help me a
baby.
great deal. So come on with it.
Come on with it, because you're talking about in my household in terms of in terms of college financing. I've
Yeah.
got three: myself,
Hey,
my
come
wife who's
on.
going for her doctorates as well,
Yeah.
and my daughter who's starting her pre-med. So yes, we'll start getting some loans so they can get forgiven.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
got a few of them. So,
But for those who are watching us and you're watching us on one application, you are going to time out because the show is over an hour. But if you're following us on YouTube, we invite you to first, subscribe, and second, share. Now, for those of you who are timed out, see you next week for our next exciting conversation, which will be with the Love Doctor, Dr. Laura Lewis. And we're going to discuss how a black man can live and be in love with a strong black woman. Now, for those of you who are following us right now on YouTube, we're going to keep this conversation going for a little bit while longer. Are you guys okay with that? All right. So go ahead, Iman. I'm sorry to cut you off because I didn't want it to time out.
no, I mean, I just want to bring a little levity to it. I mean, it's a serious issue, but at the same time, I have a few of the student loans, but one of the things that one of the things I really want to just emphasize, which I already mentioned, and like I said, I have experience from working in government, working under people who have been elected to office, and it bothers me. It really does. How so many of them they get into office and then they don't follow through. And I even know some situations where some politicians have demands and expectations that minorities would have. They would just kind of discount them because the attitude was almost like, well, they're going to vote for me anyway. I better make sure that this other segment of society is looked at.
Iman, that is what the Democratic Party has been saying for at least two generations now.
Yeah.
And the blacks are going to vote for us anyway. And I think one of the great things that came out of this campaign is that that Vice President Biden would say was, I have a firewall coming up in the Carolinas. And he kept saying that. And true enough, the African American community stepped up and saved him. And there should be no doubt about that whatsoever. And so
wait a minute,
in the world of owing, wait, let me just say this. In the world of owing, if now the Biden administration trying to lean into the moderate world and kind of having a sister soldier moment that Clinton once had, if they're going to be leaning in this administration and kind of forsaking what the African American community in the Carolinas did for him, then there's going to be hell to pay in the next round. I can tell you that.
But I doubt it, right? So, Rabbi, when Clyburn was asked directly, based on what you did for Biden, what does he owe you?
What did Clyburn say? What did he say? I'm curious.
He said nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah, that's a big
Owe
mistake.
me anything.
In the world of politics,
so wait a minute. And so
that's
to Imam's point, right? We get these politicians there, right? And they don't respond. So when Ayanna Pressley says no more black faces without black voices, no more gays without gay interests, no more any whatever. If you come here, right, and you're afraid of being marginalized or stereotyped, she said, just sit down. And so I'm looking now at two things. One, Clyburn and what he did and saying he gave the signal, right? Our fearless leader gave the signal, it's nothing. And then in terms of Biden, back to what we should be demanding, I demand that Biden speak unapologetically about how to repair me.
Right.
Now, if
yeah.
now he's not going to do it because he's concerned about how other people feel. I don't care about how other people feel.
Wait, let me say this.
Well,
to you,
let me say,
100%. When he got up and he said, "I'm going to be the president for all American," everyone was like, "Oh, that's good." But you know what? Those 72 million don't care.
That's right.
there you go.
You know
There
what?
you go.
It's now time.
That's the point.
It's now time to take care of the people that put you in the position for you to take care of them and them to take care of you.
Come
But you
on,
know what?
Rabbi.
Million
Don't fall
really
off with those,
don't
Rabbi.
care.
Hit him harder. Come on, Rabbi.
I'm not convinced that those 72 million don't care. I'm convinced that there's something called groupthink. And groupthink in a clinical sense is a very powerful tool. Now,
Herd mentality.
I'm convinced that if you poll those people, you'll probably have a lot of them who are not that extreme and who not totally for Trump, but were in the group think of that. And when you get to some rationalization, there's probably some of the ones who voted for Biden who might think more like Trump. And so I think it's just over a generalization.
Wait a minute. But group thinking got Christ killed. It got Jesus killed because the group said, no, kill him. They said, well, we got this murderer. How about if we do the murder and let Jesus? No, kill Jesus. That's what I think about the group thinking, because none of these people have, as this young lady had said yesterday, none of them have the courage to look at the truth.
Well, you got groupthink for the Democrats, you got groupthink for the Republicans, and I think it was perfect for Vice President Kamala Harris to wear purple. And when President Biden was signing his executive orders, he had on a purple tie. There's got to be some place where we take this polar opposites and find some common ground.
Here is the common ground of politics. Here is the common ground of politics. Okay, under Trump, it was screw you. I got the Senate. I'm going to do what I want to do, and you can't stop me. Now that we have the House and the Senate, everybody is saying no. Screw every last one of them.
I want to know who we are.
Okay, okay.
Hey, well, who's we?
Okay, let me rephrase this. Let me rephrase this, because that's a whole rabbit hole that we don't have enough time for. Right. Now that the Democrats have the House and the Senate, all the Democrats are saying screw them over. Now today, the Republicans came up to Nancy Pelosi and said, "Well, we're all for this kumbaya and working with you and the purple thing, but the first thing we want you to do to show that you're truly working with us and we're working with you is we want you to give a free pass to the insurrectionists." Hell no! Nobody gets a get out of jail free card for that.
Well,
I think the Democrats would be just as wrong as Republicans if they had a screw you attitude. If they don't step up their game and become a team player, then they are just as bad as the Republicans.
Obama tried that team player bull crap, and look what happened to him.
No, but you can't take out the specific portion of the fact that he was a black man. As much as he tried to do, the first thing they saw when he was a black man. Now the difference with this administration is Biden is white,
but he got a black woman.
I want to ask the wise ones a question. I want to ask the wise ones a question. 74 plus million people cast a ballot for Trump. 81 million people cast a ballot for Biden.
Don't forget their plus, because there was a plus.
All right. Okay. Be quiet there.
Biden talked about unity. How do we get to unity when we have 74 plus million people here and 81 plus million people over here?
I say we stop feeding the beast.
There you go.
We stop feeding the beast of division. Now, you got 74 million who voted for one, 81 plus million voted for the other. Biden's approach is, I'm the president for everybody. So he's trying, and he keeps saying, I'm going to lower the temperature. And so instead of feeding that division, I think he's trying to speak that even though no matter who you voted for, what your belief is, at some point we got to find a common ground. As long as we keep saying, I'm a Democrat and I'm a Republican and I voted for this, you're going to feed the beast of division. You're going to feed the beast.
But the problem,
different,
the
and
problem,
you're
Reverend Doctor, the problem, Reverend Doctor, with feeding or not feeding is that if you do not address the issues of the very community that brought the Biden administration into life, because they were in death before, if you do not feed those issues, then you betray not only a community, which you do, and you betray this idea that, you know, the Democrats only use the Black community because that's what it would look like. But you also betray the idea that to move ahead in this country, we need to address those who are in desperate need.
Mm-hmm.
And let me tell you something, with the amount of COVID raging through the Black and brown communities right now, with the home ownership being lost to the economy and every other kind of pressure, with systemic racism on the rage, with driving while Black is
The number one cause of death.
it's unbelievable. If you don't have this administration that deals directly with this, and by the way, they'll be accused of playing the race card by playing the triage card. But I insist to you that, but saying I'm going to be the president for everyone, that is a dodge from your actual responsibilities based on the deficits that are being created.
No. I love your point, Rabbi.
Wait a minute.
That is a betrayal.
To say that when I say stop feeding the beast of division, I mean that intentionally, whether that's spiritual, emotional, physical, whatever. Stop feeding that beast. What I do like about the Biden administration is that you can clearly see that he has diversified his administration. That
Okay, but Reverend Doctor,
no. So what
But how does that stop?
No. He has not negated the fact that these things need to be addressed. He specifically said we're going to talk about racial injustice. He specifically said we're going to talk about COVID. He specifically said we're going to talk about
I'm tired of talk. I want him to do something.
Reverend Doctor.
And we have to demand that those things.
There you go. I'm tired of talking. Demanding he do something about that.
Oh, Lord.
It's only been 2 days. It's been 2 days.
Let's see what he's going to do.
I'm going to read that.
But how long, oh Lord? It's been 400 years.
It is 2 days.
And most of yesterday was pomp and circumstance.
No.
He was in office 2 days. About 3 hours.
Wait a minute, Doctor.
Here's the thing.
2 days, he signed executive orders.
Okay,
in 2 days,
absolutely.
in 2 days, let come on now. In 2 days, he has signed executive orders.
Well,
So let me say this. I'm going to quote President Biden. I'm going to say, "Come on, man. How many years?
That's malarkey.
How many years?"
Look, I mean, even
Come on.
in one day,
he reversed immigration.
yeah.
He did a bunch of stuff with COVID.
But he did nothing. He did nothing from me getting pulled over and having my black behind shot by some angry, I'm mad because black people in power cops.
No.
2 days.
2 days.
You did.
Okay, you're telling me immigration. You're telling me immigration. Somebody who fundamentally believes that he is better than me when he comes to this country. His life is better than mine.
2 days. Listen.
He did get rid of the Muslim ban.
Listen, Jesus
Lord
was on the cross. Listen, Jesus Lord was on the cross on Friday, and by Sunday, 3 days, he had risen. All right, out of the garden tomb.
He put a bunch of money into COVID.
This guy,
that's
listen,
his number one priority.
This guy is the president of the United States. He can move.
And getting this stuff about COVID.
No. No. Here, now listen. Now, Dr. Lang, I'm with you in terms of 2 days. But of all those executive orders that he's signing, somewhere along the line, it should come to his immediate attention that we have this huge systematic racism and corporate and the institution of racism has been going on so long that does not need immediate attention. People are dying at the hands of racist cops. People are dying at the hands of racist doctors.
Listen, the number one executive order.
You got to give his administration opportunity.
No.
Doctor, how long should we give him before we start demanding?
Give him more than 2 days. Give him more than 4 days.
No.
10 days, 20 days.
3 days.
COVID first.
3 days out of the garden tomb.
No,
Hey,
I'm
That's all he's got.
willing.
immigrants didn't have to wait more than 2 days.
Hey, and they ain't even in this country.
It's going to take more than 2 days for systemic racism to stop.
No,
That's unrealistic.
it definitely is. I mean,
See,
I think
We're
that
gonna sign
no,
an
no,
executive
I
no,
just-
no.
executive order. From now on, you cannot be biased. What I did tell you is what he started from the door is when he walked in there, he said, if I hear you talking to your coworker, if I hear you being racist, if I hear you being sexist, you're fired on the spot. That's
Then why
what
don't he
he
say that to the
should-
rest of the country?
But what
Martin
he
Luther
should
King,
have said,
Martin Luther King
the
said,
leadership?
Martin Luther King said this. He said, legislation against racism does not stop the racist, but
That's
legislation against racism does stop him from hanging me.
yeah.
Okay.
Now, but what he
So
should have
let's see what
said,
happens on day 3.
but what he should have
And
said,
a
Doc,
letter
he
from a
should have.
Birmingham jail. How long, oh Lord?
Thank
It's been
you.
400 years, so I'm sure 400 years in 3 days.
You know what? It can be done. Off the cross, out of the garden tomb. 3 days.
But
Three
you know
days.
what? You know what President Biden should have said?
What?
You're fired. That's what he should have said. But anyway, listen. I have to go. Guys. But
we're going
in all
to wrap this up.
seriousness-
We're going to wrap this up right now. So
Okay.
why don't you do the since you're going right now? Why don't you do the final comment and take us home?
Oh, you want me to do the final? Okay. Well, I would just say this is definitely a new beginning. I am very hopeful.
Yes.
I'm hopeful that the new president will elevate, the level of government that we have been unfortunately under for 4 years. I am hopeful of that. I am also hopeful and glad that he has a very diverse cabinet. But also, too, I think that all of us, whether regardless of our colors or whatever, but especially the Black and brown community, that we have to make demands. We have to make sure that those policies become real. And we have to keep reminding, I think, of our elected officials what's needed and make adjustments as they go, because what might be the right thing for 2020, where are we at? 2021 might not be the right thing a year from now, 2 years from now. And also to keep reminding, as my book says, remind, because reminding benefits the believer or the person. Keep reminding those elected officials of their responsibilities and their duty, and for them to have the courage to stand up for those issues that affect us and can bring about justice and equality. And one last thing is that we just also, even though we are demanding, even though we are, we want certain things, and we, I think that we just have to be careful that we do not become like others. We keep our dignity and we keep our fairness and all of that, but at the same time, be aggressive in what we're doing.
And on behalf of my co-host, Eric Dawson, I'd like to thank, once again, my 3 wise ones, Rabbi Seth Frisch, Reverend Dr. Ashelareen Lang, Iman Karib Brashear, because your wisdom and knowledge of the text is, far outweighs and gives us a lot of hope and what we're looking for. So, as usual, be good to one another, be kind to one another, keep your distance, wear your mask, because over 4,000 people in America died